We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Wednesday. We had a very eventful day yesterday, Tuesday. It all started to pop. And when I decided to do the show today, I thought, I need another voice in on this with all the shit that happened. So I reached out to a listener and a former guest on the show, Dennis. He's a younger guy. You might remember him. He's the one that does the leather crafts. Dennis, welcome back. I appreciate you giving me a hand today.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it. I think that when we look back in history, this is probably one of the most important days in American history. So for you to ask me to come on to the show, it's a huge honor, man. I think that, yeah, this is wild. I think that this is the most important and the biggest story that there for sure in my lifetime,
Yeah, I think for the people of your generation, this is going to be a historical moment in time that you will remember and you'll tell your grandkids about, much like we talked about Watergate and Vietnam and prior to that, Pearl Harbor and all the things that were major events in this country. I know Donald Trump was indicted in Manhattan District and in Florida, and those were important cases because a former president is indicted. But this particular indictment is crucial because it was specifically about him trying to interfere or overturn a fair and honest election. And that there is no crime higher than that for a former president. There's just nothing worse that they could do.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that's worse. I know, like, I think of this one quite a bit different than the other indictments. The Stormy Daniels thing, that, I don't know, it felt good to see him get indicted, right? Like, first president indicted. Like, it was kind of like the, get the ball rolling or whatever. And I think it also served to make the naysayers, myself included, kind of shut up a little bit and be like, oh, maybe there is some stuff coming. Then the documents one, I think that's when my opinion started to change and started to have faith in the DOJ and specifically Jack Smith. Then seeing how he's handled that rolling into this one, I was waiting for it last week. When I emailed you, the whole Subway sandwich conspiracy theory, I thought it was going to be 2 days after that. But this one, to me, it's different because I'm an American. I vote, and our vote is our voice. And if somebody tries to take that away at any level, whether it's, local, up to national, and then to the federal level, the actual president trying to take away, votes from people, that's really scary, man. That is incredibly scary. And it's made me do a lot of research into the history of situations like this. I know we've talked about that quite a bit in my fascination with educating myself about, like, authoritarians and how societies become fascistic and all of that kind of stuff. And I just was on vacation last week and I read the book Strong Men, and it's Mussolini to modern times, which is Trump. That's to the present. And this is what they do. They make it so that your vote doesn't count. It's an illusion of democracy, but it isn't democracy. Even what we have, we have elected democracy or representative democracy, where we vote somebody in, and that whole deal. But well, this one's crazy. This one's a crazy one.
Well, the things that he's being charged with are pretty compelling. You talked about affecting people's ability to vote, and I think it was a conspiracy against rights, which means disenfranchising voters, which is pretty egregious. When a leader of a country tries, as you said, to stop voters or disenfranchise voters, that there's nothing much worse than that. And of course, he's being charged with conspiracy to defraud the United States. That's not a good one. And then obstruction of attempting, what was it? A conspiracy to obstruct, and then obstructing and an attempt to obstruct a government proceeding. these are some serious fucking things here. I mean, each one of these probably has minimum, I don't know about minimum, but maybe maximum sentences of 20, 25 years. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, espionage is one thing, and we've got that going with the classified documents case, but these two are just as serious.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I think where I was a little bit different when it actually started, when it did come out, was I thought it was going to be more centered around the violence and inciting a riot, the rioting, the riot leading to the insurrection. But there's not really, from my understanding, I didn't read the whole thing, and I've just picked up clips here and there since, we were emailing back and forth. But from my understanding, there's not a whole bunch about that. It's more about um, the taking the rights away and what's it called? Doing the fake electors
Right.
and all of that kind of stuff, which is hopefully going to pop off in Georgia as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it may pop off with the DOJ too. I mean, the one thing you have to understand is there was only one person indicted today or yesterday, and that was Donald Trump. There are six co conspirators. I think they've kind of figured out five of them. They don't know what the sixth one would be, but they were not indicted. And people are saying, well, what about the sitting members of Congress? What about Ginny Thomas and all that stuff? I think Jack Smith specifically only indicted Donald Trump today for the sake of speed.
yeah,
He knows
yep.
the Florida case might be delayed and fucked around with, but we're in Washington D.C. now, a whole different story. And if he just indicted in this case Donald Trump, there would be no confusion or anything to make it convoluted. They'd get down to business. There is no worry about getting people certified to look at classified documents. This is a straightaway case. It's just Donald Trump, and this fucking thing could get done pretty quickly.
I think that too was really interesting to me because, of course, just like I'm sure all of the listeners, there was a huge part of me that wanted the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the all of the people, the Jim Jordans, all of the people that could have potentially been involved with it, the My Pillow guy in that meeting, or the Overstock ex-CEO, all of those people. I thought there was going to be a big sweeping indictment, but when the legal side of the news was explaining why, just like you explained why, the reason that is to speed things up. And it made me feel a little bit better, because if we could, as long as we could take him down, I think that at least it's something. I would love to see specifically. I always want to see Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and that whole shit show caucus taken out.
Well, I think they are going to be. They're going to get their indictments, and I think they know in their minds that this is just the beginning. I think Jack Smith, what he's doing the smart thing. He's cutting the head off the snake, because that's the pressing issue here. We're not worried about other people getting reelected and all that stuff, but he needs to get this done before 2024. And he saw what was happening with Mar-a-Lago. We're still not sure if she's going to delay it to a crazy amount, but even if she does, so what? I mean, one of the things that people talk to me about, well, what if he doesn't get convicted of this or that or this? Here's the fucking thing. It doesn't matter what he gets convicted of. We need just one conviction. Right now, we're at like 75, 76 felony charges. We only need one. And I don't
Right.
care if it's the espionage or if it's the disenfranchising people. All we need is one. But Jack Smith doesn't charge anybody with something unless he's pretty sure he's going to convict. So if we get two, three, or four, or five, forget about it. It's over.
I think too, I'm kind of the pessimistic voice when I come on and through emails and our corresponding. And I think that that's changed quite a bit recently, even though the polling shows Biden and Trump pretty much head to head or neck to neck, whatever.
That's
I don't believe
bullshit.
it. Yeah, it's bullshit. There's been too many elections already that just polling is, it's pissed into the wind. It doesn't even make sense. But um, I just for once, like recently, I just don't think that without all of these convictions or court cases or whatever, I don't think Trump would get elected again, just because I can't see he lost the last election, the actual,
Right.
election. And I don't know anyone, or I don't hear of anyone else going from an independent to a Trump supporter. Like, you don't see, I just couldn't imagine there being more voters for Trump since 2020. So how is he going to be able to pull it off this time?
Well, exactly. And, I get a lot of people sending me DMs and notes and stuff. I had a lady, an older lady, I think she was about 75. She sent me a note. She goes, I'm so worried that he'll run for reelection and he'll win. What do you think's going to happen if he wins? And I say to her what I say to everybody. If by some chance he got to the general election, and I don't think he can, there's no way he wins because, as you said, he lost by 7 million votes in 2020. And if you think he's going to win, please tell me where he got the 7 million more votes to win in 2024. He's done nothing but lose votes. And
Right.
beyond that, I don't think he has a prayer of getting the nomination. This guy's going to be buried in so much legal shit. He's going to be going to court dates every other fucking day. He's running out of money. He's
Yeah,
got
I saw
nothing
that.
going his way. Pretty soon, he's going to be even more of a liability than he is to the Republican Party, and they will abandon him. Like I said before, when I said this in another podcast, when Marjorie Taylor Greene and these sitting members of Congress and his friends and his administration start getting nicked, guess what? They ain't going to have time to support or push Donald Trump. They'll be running around trying to save their own ass. And that will be the demise of Donald Trump. And he won't even be the nominee.
Yeah, you keep saying that, and that's the part that I haven't gotten that far in my optimism. I love you, Mike, but I hear you. I just haven't been able to see that yet. I mean, we're still ways out. We're not even to the first debate, but I just can't imagine him not being the nominee.
Let
Like,
me
it's
let, let,
just
let me plead my case here.
sure. I'd love to hear it.
Dennis, how long have you been listening to me on TikTok or the podcast?
Probably over, I want to say a year ish, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit more,
Okay,
give or
over a
take.
year. How many times have
Yeah.
I been wrong?
Okay, okay. Jeez. Good point. Touche, touche.
and,
No,
and again,
you're right.
it's not that I'm brilliant. It's just I'm looking at the facts. You can't win an election if you're losing voters, and you lost it in the first place. These other people are going to get nicked. We know that Ginny Thomas was in meetings in the White House and in the Mayflower. We know Jim Jordan talked to Donald Trump 6 times on January 6th. We know a lot of people were tangled in this fucking web of insurrection, and they're going to get hit. And when they do, trust me, I know how people act. Once they're hurt, they ain't protecting anybody but themselves. And when that
Of course.
happens, it tamps down this whole fucking rhetoric shit.
Well, they're all selfish people, obviously. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, they're all going to be every man for themselves when they're in that position. So you're saying that he's not even going to get the nominee. He won't be the Republican. He's not going to get the votes
No,
for in the primary.
I don't know that I would say he's not going to get the votes. I just don't think he'll be in the running. I think he'll be so buried in shit with legal stuff and money stuff, and then all this evidence coming out and a trial going forward. I just think, and I think the Republicans believe that too. The Ron DeSantis, the Mike Pence, they're expecting him to drop out. That's why they're even running with 2%. That's why they keep running, because they think he's going to drop out. And then somebody like Ron DeSantis comes along, he's losing support. He doesn't have a chance to be the nominee either, in my estimation. But he's saying, "Yeah, I'll pardon Donald Trump." And why is he saying that? Because when Donald Trump does drop out, he thinks all those people will say, "Well,
No, I'm not
DeSantis
going
will
to vote at
save my
all.
boy." No, or they'll say DeSantis is going to save my
Oh, yeah,
boy.
yeah,
He's going to pardon him. So in his little mind, he thinks he's getting all of Trump's voters. I just
yeah.
I don't know how somebody like Donald Trump over the next 16 months goes through 100 charges, court case after court case, lawsuit after lawsuit, and running out of money. How does he even survive to get to the nomination?
Grifting his supporters one last time. One
But he,
big last grift.
but even that is failing now too. I mean,
Yeah.
he spoke in Pennsylvania, got 4,000 people. You know, he's going to his PACs and trying to claw back money because he needs money for legal fees. All his money's going to legal fees, not the campaign. If you can't afford a campaign, how do you win?
Yeah. One of the first emails that I remember sending you was a question basically asking, like, do you think that the people that despise Trump, like myself, like yourself, are just as addicted to Trump as the Trump supporters? And I've been watching, just as it pops up on the news or there's coverage of him or whatever, it's gotten really boring and so predictable. I mean, that's the idea of a strong man, right? Repeat the same lie over and over and over
Right.
enough, but he doesn't have the like. I'm not naive enough to say he's not charismatic or that he's funny or he's like, there is a draw to him. I don't see the appeal, but I can see how other people see the appeal because they're crazy people. But I just don't see that anymore. Like it's actually boring. It's repetitive, and the victim complex is like, man, like you have to be really, really, really dumb at this point to be still falling for his shit.
Well, you do. You have to be pretty dumb. And I was bored with this a long time ago because this whole act I've seen many times over. As I've told you about my dad, he was a
Right.
similar kind of guy. I've seen this thing. And that's the other thing. When I say how this is going to play out, it's because I've already seen it play out.
Hmm.
Not on this level, but the same things are happening. The end is the same. I was did a tech talk recently, and I was reading up on something, and I got thinking about this, and I think it's really interesting because I think the reason Donald Trump got as popular as he is with his base is largely the fault of the Democrats. Now, when you think about it, go back a couple decades, people that were less educated, that were in lower income places, most of those people used to be Democrats. But why would they vote for Donald Trump? It's because the Democrats didn't do what they said they were going to do. And these people said, even the Democrats are ignoring us or throwing us to the wolves. So this guy sounds strong and he's going to fight for us. So we'll jump on that. It was a desperation move for these people, and then they get caught up in it, and it's a fucking cult thing, and they don't want to step back and do what's right. They're on board with Donald Trump no matter what, and it's because the Democrats didn't take care of them when they had them.
It's you know what that's so true. I can put myself in that position growing up really poor. I grew up in Huntington Beach, which is in Orange County, Southern California, very, very rich um city, super rich, but I grew up very poor in that city. And Orange County, generally speaking, is super right wing for for California,
Right.
and Huntington Beach in particular. And a lot of the people that I went to school with, I saw go so right, so incredibly right. And I always tell my wife and people that I'm close to, like, that could have been me. Like, I was into conspiracy theories. I used to listen to Alex Jones before it went. Well, I don't know. It was crazy then. I don't know who I'm kidding. Like, it was crazy then. But what turned me away from the right wing was the lack of compassion for others and the
Right.
selfishness and the hypocrisy. Like, I don't consider myself a Democrat. More and more every single day, I feel less and less like a Democrat. I'm very much like what the Democrats preach on social issues is more my tempo, but what they actually do isn't much. It doesn't
Right.
feel like it's much. Financially, they're just, I mean, it's the same, you know, they're still the Democrats still get they still get corporate money to do their campaigning. There's still dirty money that comes into it. So, I don't agree with the finances of the Democrats, I guess.
Well, I'm the first one to say that if not for Donald Trump and the Republicans and how horrible they are, I probably wouldn't have as big a platform as I have now because I wouldn't have as much to talk about. But people
Yeah,
say to me, "What do you do when Donald Trump goes away? What are you going to talk about then?"
there's
Eh,
enough idiots.
well, there's enough idiots, and the point of it is I've always said I'm not Democrat, I'm not Republican. I don't see it as Democrat versus Republican. I see it as us against them.
Yeah,
Now, the Democrats aren't as criminal as the Republicans are at this point. But if the Democrats get in power, they do have a tendency to get lazy. Like they should have codified Roe v. Wade. You know,
thank you.
when they did build, I said this yesterday when they talked about Build Back Better, and the Democrats said this is a transitional bill. We've done nothing like this in 80 years. I wasn't mad at the Republicans about that. I was mad at the Democrats. You mean to tell me you're supposed to be working for us and you've never done anything like this or even tried anything like this in 80 years? Where the fuck were you? So even when Donald Trump's gone and the whole Republican Party is extinguished because they will have to burn down and build themselves back up, we still need to be on top of our politicians, whether they happen to be Democrat. The pressure we put on them keeps them honest. And that's what I hope to do, regardless of who's in office or whatever. Because there's some things about Joe Biden I don't like. I like him generally. I'm glad he's there instead of Donald Trump, but there's some things I don't like. He's a little out of touch. He doesn't understand how things are today. He's still living in the 90s. No filibuster. We got to keep the filibuster. Now we're not going to expand the court. Those aren't the answers I want to fucking hear. We're in transitional times. We need somebody who's has the courage and the mindset to do that.
I agree with your stance on Biden. I don't really. There's things that happen that they irritate me big time. You know, like I said, I'm a lot more left leaning than Biden. You know,
Right.
that's pretty clear in the conversations that we've had. But I'm also in the same way, I'm grateful that he is in instead of Trump.
Absolutely.
I tell people all the time, I didn't vote for Biden. I voted against Trump. And it breaks my heart because I think people my age and younger want a reason to be excited to vote, not to vote out of fear of the less of two evils. And that's what I'm hearing from people my age and younger is, man, it would be nice to have the JFK figure, or somebody to come in, whoever that might be. Who knows who that's going to be on the Democratic side or even the Republican side, somebody that's going to be exciting to kind of take us into this next era. And what you were saying, like as far as I don't mean to get long-winded,
No,
but
no, go ahead.
I try to remember multiple things so that I can come back to them. But you were saying about how the if the Republican Party goes extinct, and I think that's very likely. I think they're not getting voted
Well,
in
at
as
least as we
much.
know them now, the way
Sure,
the position they're in now, that will go away. The Republican Party in name may remain, but I think they're going to realize after they get drubbed in 2024 that they're going to have to be a more compassionate, more focused on the people as opposed to rich people if they want to fucking survive.
I think that they're too stupid, though. I mean, how did you not learn that in
Good point.
2022? Like,
Yeah.
they lost because of a number of things, but the first one that comes to mind is the abortion thing, and now they're leaning into it even more. Look at like Ron DeSantis trying to rewrite Black history in the state of Florida. Like, people don't like that unless you're a white supremacist. Like a white supremacist. The average, do you like that? Do you think it's good that slavery was
No.
good for some people? No one thinks that. Like it's so sad. So I think that there'll still be a small portion of that far right wing fascist type branch, the DeSantis, the Marjorie Taylor Greene, all of those people, because they bring in a lot of money. That's what it is. That's why the Republicans keep them around. And then I think that the Joe Biden's, the establishment Democrats will become the more right leaning kind of Republicans as we knew it 20
Yeah.
years ago.
Right.
Then the progressives will be the left, and then there'll be something more socialist coming in from the far left. I think that that's the way it's going to progress,
I
or
th-
I
I, th-
hope.
I think that the red herring in this whole thing is Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been kind of the unicorn in that he comes in, he's this dumb fuck spewing fascist ideas, and for whatever reason, he's become popular with a certain faction of people in this country. Now, I liken politicians to what the music business used to be. When I worked in the music business, I'd have a guy who wrote a song that was really, really good. And then they want you to have him write songs exactly like that one he just wrote, which was stupid. And I think the politicians in the Republican Party see what Donald Trump did, and now they're just trying to emulate Donald Trump without the baggage. That's what Ron DeSantis is doing. So they figure the more extreme they go, the more they'll seem like Donald Trump. But in the end, when Donald Trump gets extinguished, which he will, they're going to have to make some decisions because it's not going to do well for him in the elections, and they will have to change the Ron DeSantis. Be perfectly honest with you, I guarantee in 5 years, Ron DeSantis isn't even in politics anymore.
I agree with you. I think it's unlikely that he can force himself in,
No,
meaning like the fire in the what's it called, beer hall, like how Hitler came in, or the bombing of the apartment buildings, how Putin got in. Like there's always this big event, right?
right.
Um unless something like that happens, which I don't see happening. I I mean, no one likes DeSantis's face, the way he talks, the way he bobbleheads. Like that's the thing about Trump. Like love him or hate him, I choose to hate him. He is charismatic. People like listening to him talk. No one likes listening to DeSantis talk. He doesn't have comebacks, but he's also the biggest pussy. He gets his
Yeah.
feelings hurt about the most minute thing. He doesn't know how to spin out of it. He just takes the blow to the face and like cries and yells at the person.
He's socially awkward. And, having been in radio and media for as long as I have, there are people who might be technically able to do the job, but there's an intangible in media and in politics and in acting and everything. You got to have something that people can kind of relate to, a way about you, the way you talk, the way you look, the way you act. If they don't feel comfortable with you or they think you're weird or awkward, it's just not going to work no matter how good you are. And that's the problem Ron DeSantis has. He's socially awkward. He's kind of a douchebag and he's kind of arrogant. He's kind of a dick, and nobody likes that. The only way you get away with being a dick is if you're like Donald Trump, where you're kind of funny and people can kind of relate to you. As stupid as that sounds, Donald Trump is just as dumb or dumber than Ron DeSantis, but he's more acceptable to some people. Not to you
Right.
and me, but more some
No.
people.
It's so true. It's with Ron DeSantis, I think that he could be very dangerous in the package that Donald Trump brings. You don't have to necessarily be smart to be dangerous.
No,
You don't have to be, you just have to be crazy enough. And I mean, it proves that he's crazy enough. People just don't like he's not sly about his racism. He's not sly
no.
about his bigotry. He's not sly about any of these things. He doesn't even try to make it sound like he is anymore. It's just, what he says is so blatant that people, I mean, even in the Republican Party, the handful of, African American people, Tim Scott and that other dude, are like, what are you even talking about? Like,
Yeah.
you went too far for them. That's pretty crazy.
He's not a clever man. He's not an articulate man. And he reminds me of those people I've met in radio before who will go on the air and they imagine how a disc jockey is supposed to sound and they try to be funny and they force the issue of being
Yeah.
funny. And I've told people, I said, the worst thing you can do if you want to be funny is if you're not funny, don't be funny, because that's an innate thing that you have. Either you are or you aren't. And if you aren't and you try, you will look worse than not being funny at all. And it's the same with politics. If you don't have that innate style about you, if you can't relate to people, you're not going to do well in that business, because the people will always say, well, this isn't a popularity contest. Fuck if it isn't. That's all it is.
That's all it is. Yeah, you're gonna say a bunch of things that you hope paid, that bait people in through their emotions. If it's right wing, you're gonna say, the whole border crisis and the stuff we've been hearing for years. If you're on the left, you're gonna say social issues, and we're gonna help this group of people and this group of people. Then when you get there, first you try to undo everything that the last person did, and then you do a few things here or there. There's not big movement in one term most of the time, or even two terms. It's kind of like, you say it kind of balances itself out. It's a
Right.
pendulum.
What do you think? What do you think's going on in the Republican Party now? They keep trying to spin everything. They keep trying to pin things on Hunter Biden. It's just not working. Um, it's going to be interesting to see. This is airing Wednesday. So what Donald Trump and Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell and all these people, what they're going to say now. I mean, the indictments that came out really suggest that Donald Trump doesn't have much of defense in this situation. He's got everybody around him who has flipped on him. Mark Meadows. We haven't heard from Mark Meadows still,
Oh, he flipped.
which tells us he's a cooperating witness. He's without a doubt. He's going to plead guilty to some lesser charges and he'll get whatever he gets. But the fact that we haven't heard of Mark Meadows, I know they were looking at the 6 co-conspirators. They know that they know who 5 of them are basically the Sidney Powells, Rudy Giuliani's, John Eastman's, and those folks, and the Cheesebro. But they don't know who that 6th one is, and it's not Mark Meadows. When you've got a guy who's your chief of staff into the middleman between all the conversations, and he's not one of the co-conspirators, there's only one answer there. He's cooperating.
He flipped from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's the only way that he could get himself out of some of the trouble. I think that the original thing that you were saying about like them trying to look over here with sorry, my phone, look over here about Hunter Biden, all of those things, that's happened for years now, and people just don't care. It's not going to bring any Democrat that was going to vote for Joe Biden over to vote for the Republican. So that doesn't really matter. It's going to always be, oh, well, how come this private citizen, the president's son, can get away with this, but the former president can't get away that was in office. It's always the whataboutisms. And I think that if something does happen with Biden, it's going to be the dog that caught the car. Like, okay, now what? What's the next thing that you're going to
Yeah.
make a huge deal? Once that's done, like I have no problem with Hunter Biden. If he's guilty, lock him up. If Biden, if Joe Biden's guilty and they're able to find him, lock him up. Like, I don't have any personal attachment to those people whatsoever. Like, if you commit a crime, you go to jail, but that has to go both ways, and it will never go both ways with the Republicans ever.
Yeah. It just goes to show how desperate the Republicans are. The only thing they have, Joe Biden's been in office for 2.5 years as president, 8 years as vice president. The only thing they can go after is his son. And it was something that was already kind of litigated through the DOJ and the FBI under Donald Trump. And they said there's nothing there. That's all they have. That's all they could come up with. I mean, Jesus Christ, Joe Biden's been in office 2.5 years. You'd think you'd be able to find something and be able to expand on it, but they've got to take something that's already been looked into by their own people, and there's nothing there, and they have to go drag it from the abyss and bring it back out again. It's got to be fucking embarrassing.
It yeah, but they don't care about the embarrassment. That's what they even go on TV and say. They just want it to be on the news all the time. Even Kevin McCarthy said the same thing about Hillary's emails. They're like, it doesn't have to be that we find anything. We just need to distract enough. And I don't know. It's one of those things where they're never going to find. And if they do find something, they find it. But I don't think that they're actually looking to find anything. They just want to keep it in the headlines and keep Fox News talking about it. And, the Biden crime family. And I saw the Karen or whatever, the little strip at the bottom, because I like watching Fox News immediately when Trump gets indicted. And the bottom says, Joe Biden's DOJ indicts Trump again. And it's like they always attach the Joe Biden's DOJ, and it's so predictable.
Right. Right. They talk about Joe Biden weaponizing the DOJ when nobody weaponized the DOJ more than Donald Trump and the Republicans. That it's fucking proven, and we're seeing it in these indictments. Did you watch Fox News after this indictment came out? I
Oh
can't
yeah.
bring I can't bring myself to watch Fox News
I know you couldn't. That's why I did.
because every time I watch Fox News, I need to shower, and if I shower before
Hmm.
I go to bed, I won't be able to sleep. So I don't watch
Right.
Fox News. What did you see?
The talking points are going to be freedom of speech, that he was just talking, and that's all I could catch. It was Jesse Waters, the new Tucker Carlson, and it's so it's so hard to watch in the sense that it's one so predictable. I
Yeah.
don't have to watch it to know what they're going to say. It's just think of the stupidest shit that you possibly can, and that's what they're going to say. And it's yeah, I mean that was basically it, and they're going to just keep repeating that. They're
Right.
not going to show the actual. They're not going to read the indictment. They're not going to, you know, they're not going to show their audience anything that's going to resemble any kind of truth, because that gives up the ghost, and that's not
Right.
what they want.
Well, and the thing I kept hearing on the left side media that I watch, MSNBC or something like that, they're all kind of imploring the judge and whoever to make sure that this January 6th trial is on television. Now they're
Yeah.
suggesting it could go all the way up to John Robert, the Supreme Court, and he would make the decision. I don't know what he would do in that situation, but I think it's important that we do have it on television. We had Watergate on television, and whether you're Republican or Democrat, you saw exactly what happened. And that is the only way we're going to get the Republicans to see the truth and the facts. And that's the only way we can change some minds and get somebody on a reasonable track of truth. So I hope they can put it on television, because just reporting it, they'll just say, oh, they're just lying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we, as the American public, deserve to be able to see it. And I think that that would be the actual way to heal the country. They say, well, the only way to heal the country is just to forget that it happened, and, pardon him, and, it will divide us too much. That's absolutely not true. Like, that's like telling a, domestic violence survivor, hey, just the way to get over this trauma is just to forget about it,
Right.
just and that's not the way it is. You got to bring it to light and see what actually happened. But and in order to do that, it's going to reveal a lot of people um that aren't Donald Trump either. And the long run, these trials aren't going to go away, especially not the state ones. If God forbid Trump were to get into office, or a Republican, and he was pardoned from the other ones, the state ones aren't going to go away, and
No.
the history of him being charged for all of these aren't going to go away, and the documents of Marjorie Taylor Greene, all of the information is going to be in the history books forever. It's just whoever wins gets to tell that history, and
Right.
that's the scary part.
Well, I think we learned a lesson in retrospect when Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon. I think we can now say that was a mistake, and maybe
Right.
one of the reasons why Donald Trump felt emboldened in doing what he did. Had Richard Nixon been prosecuted and maybe gone to jail, I think somebody like Donald Trump, well, maybe not Donald Trump, but most people would be deterred from doing something like that, because they know there would be some accountability. Donald Trump always believes he's not accountable for anything. He never has been. So this is all very foreign to it. I'm sure he's losing his shit right now.
Oh, sure. I also don't think that uh, the mental health issue of Donald Trump, I think, is real. Like I
Oh
really
yeah,
think that the
I agree.
narcissism, he probably, just the way that he continuously repeats the lies to other people and they believe him, he's repeating them to himself until he believes them. And his reality is probably what he says.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, you talk about the repetition and it's boring and it's some strategy. Honestly, for me, it just sounds very childish. He doesn't have the words to say something different, so he just repeats the same things over and over, and it's so lame and it's so ridiculous. But that's all he's got. Especially now when he's got all this shit hanging over his head. He's very confused because he's never experienced this before.
You're absolutely right. And I think the same thing. The repetitiveness is very boring, but it's like a catchy song. The constant lock her up, build the wall, all of these different things. Those are the chants of people that bring people together. That's cults 101, and it's fascism dictators 101. Like
Right.
you and I can see through it, but that is the same playbook of Mussolini and Hitler. And I'm only like bringing this up because I just educated myself for an entire week on it and I'm kind of proud of myself. But those like mantras and the chants that he does, and the like, when you start hearing um his supporters repeat what it is that he's saying verbatim,
Yeah.
it's brainwashing. It actually is. The repetitiveness is the brainwashing part. You and I look past and go, that's really dumb. Like,
Right. Well, we have to remember
it,
you and I and the people that listen to the podcast, we're fucking brilliant. These people are
geniuses.
imbeciles. Those people are imbeciles and they will believe anything. That's why I said to my wife one time, if I was a little less, a little less ethical,
Oh,
knowing what I know about narcissists, I could build myself a pretty good fucking cult
yeah.
if by just knowing what to say. But I'm
If I wasn't ethical, and I think about this all the time, I would just start a MAGA business. Being
Yeah,
a
me
leather
too.
crafter, I could just stamp, MAGA on leather wallets and sell them for ridiculous amounts of money, and go to all of the rallies, or just get linked up with all of the influencers, and be able to, the little Punisher masks and all the little meme stuff that they do. I would be swimming in loot, but I also have a conscience and I
Well,
can't do it. I want to, but I
me
can't.
too. Me too. And you know what? Had you done that 2 years ago, had you started doing that MAGA merch and leather and stuff
Oh
like that,
God.
I'd reach out to you today and say, hey, you want to be on the show? And you go, I'm in fucking Bermuda. I don't have time for that shit.
Yeah. You know what? Part of me, again, this is the like spiteful, um, crappy version of me, but part of me would like to do it just because, not just because there's money to be made, but these people will just hand over their pensions to anything. Like
Yeah.
it's the televangelists of the 2020s.
It's kind of like stealing candy from children or duping elderly folks. I
Yeah.
I just can't bring myself to do that. I tell you what,
Yeah.
let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Listener Dennis joins us today. It was an eventful day yesterday with the indictment of Donald Trump regarding the January 6th insurrection. And I thought, I'm going to need some help on this. And thankfully, Dennis was available, and I appreciate you coming in. Um, as we're recording this, we're recording it late on Tuesday night, so we don't know what's going to happen on Wednesday. I got a feeling it's going to be a little crazy out there with the Republicans today.
Yeah, I think so too. It's gonna be crazy in the way that it's gonna be predictable. They're gonna say that this is a political witch hunt. I mean, the things that we've been hearing for the last years and years and years. It's not even like, I mean, could any of us expect them to change their tune to,
No.
tonight into tomorrow morning, where they're gonna be like, this is the one thing that, I mean, they all got the memo way before, people listening to this, way before yesterday. And so, Trump already said that he got the target letter, so they've been preparing their story and their narrative from a while now. So they're just going to come out and say that it's, Biden's DOJ, that it's going to go after him because he's the GOP front runner, and the only way the Democrats can win is if they cheat, and they're going to try to knock him out with all these things, which the Democrats have won the last 3 elections. So, and Trump's lost the last 3 elections. So it's just the repetitiveness, and it's predictable. It's not, before I may have gotten my feelings, not feelings hurt, but like, come on, like, why don't you see this right in front of you? But it's kind of boring. It's kind of repetitive.
It is. Well, now we know that he's going to be arraigned in Washington, D.C. on Thursday. It sounds like Thursday
Right.
afternoon, 4 o'clock Eastern time. And of course, everybody's up in arms. Oh, they've got all kinds of security measures. Secret Service is talking to the Metro Police and getting everything ready because they're worried about the possibility of violence. And I guess it's better to be safe than sorry. I don't honestly believe anything's going to happen. It didn't happen in Manhattan. It didn't happen in Florida. It's not going to happen here.
People don't want to go to jail anymore. They want to talk tough on the internet, but they're not going to go, like, they're not really about it. And I used to think that every time something like this, especially, in New York, I thought it was going to be a certain way. It wasn't. Then for sure, I thought in Florida it was going to be a certain way because that's Trump country.
Right.
Nothing happened. And DC, nothing is going to happen because of what happened in January 6th. They're just not even going to show up. I doubt there might be a couple people, waving their flags and whatever, but I just don't see it. There's not going to be a big commotion, I don't think. And it's funny that you say the arraignment on Thursday. The question I had before we even started this podcast for you, Mike, do you think that there is any kind of crimes or any kind of charges that he could get where he won't be able to get out on, because he's out on bail on 2 other indictments? Do you think that there's anything that would make them either put a bracelet on his ankle, or at least, or put him up?
I think there's plenty of crimes that they could, the only reason they wouldn't let somebody out on bail is because if they were a danger to society. And frankly, Donald Trump is a danger to society. He has a track record of inciting people to violence. He probably still has classified documents. It would be best to lock him down. Certainly, the woman Aileen Cannon in Florida doesn't have the courage to hold him without bail.
Yeah.
Manhattan District didn't, but I think that's more due to the level of the crime there. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen in Washington, D.C., but I'm not convinced they will do it. I think they should because he is a danger, but by virtue of him being a former president, that might be a little tough for them to do. As much as I think they should, I don't think they will.
The political ramification would be massive, and I don't know if it would necessarily help the case, but at the same time, if it was you or me that did any of that stuff,
Oh
we
yeah.
wouldn't see the light of day before our court date, and our court date wouldn't be a speedy trial. They would say it was a speedy trial, but we'd be in for a long time in a federal prison waiting for, or whatever. um it's it this one really made me start thinking that way. Before it made sense, but I was like, maybe this one is the one that he doesn't get out, but I don't think it's going to happen. I wish it would, but um yeah, it would
That
be
would
cool if he did.
that would be interesting if they locked him down and he couldn't get out. You talk about losing your shit. Donald Trump and the Republicans would go fucking nuts. And that may be, and that may be the reason why they don't do it. They think maybe that would be the thing that would raise people up to the point of violence if they did that. I mean, eventually he's going
That's
to
not
get
a good
locked down.
reason not to do it, though.
No, no,
I
it's
think that
not.
that's a horrible reason not to do something. And I think that I think you're right. It could be that way, but it could also be that if he is locked up and the Republicans, especially the presidential nominees, the people that are going after him, if they know he's locked up, they might actually start turning on him. You know what I mean? That could actually break the party up a lot faster than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing about those indictments, which I found kind of interesting, was a lot of the crimes in that indictment revolve around his interactions with Mike Pence.
Yeah.
Now, certainly Donald Trump didn't give that information, so it had to be Mike Pence. So that tells us, in spite of what he said up to now, he must have flipped on Donald Trump in order to save his ass. If you ask him, he says he didn't flip on Donald Trump. But then yesterday, after he was indicted, he did say some negative shit about Donald Trump, about not being able to run for office if you did certain things. So I was wondering, did Mike Pence actually suddenly grow a pair? And would mother even allow that? I don't know, but I think he was put in a position where he had no choice. It's just like when he certified the Electoral College. Everybody thinks he's a hero because he did what the Constitution said, but he spent a lot of time trying to figure out a way to subvert that. And when he couldn't, he just did what he had to do. And I think the same can be said for what he ended up giving up in testimony to Jack Smith. He had no choice. He's no hero. He had no choice.
I think that by no means do I support or agree with probably 99.999% of Pence's politics, or, the policies he would like to put into place if he was president. But as a man, I think that he had a really, really hard job, being that I believe that he really is a man of faith, whatever that looks like to him. It's not the same way that I worship, but that's the way that he does. I think that he wants to be honest. Even that's mentioned I think in the indictment, that Trump told him, "You're too honest, Mike. Like you're too honest for this." He had to deal with the biggest liar ever, and he's scared. He's a coward. Mike Pence is a coward.
Absolutely a coward.
Public facing, he's scared of Trump. He's scared of Trump supporters. He thought that he was going to murder him. Like, imagine how traumatic that would be for you and your family. And I'm not defending him. Trust me, I don't want anyone to think that. But when you're in, a private office with, lawyers and the people from the government, you might say things that you wouldn't say when you're on Fox News. You might actually be like, this is what happened. I want to be able to, he didn't testify in the Jan 6 committee,
no,
but he testified in that. I bet you he's a lot more honest in those meetings than he is on Fox News. That's my opinion.
Sure. It's all about perception and all about trying to get votes and trying to protect his situation. But here's the thing: when he certified the electors, the electoral vote, everybody said, "Oh, he did the right thing. He's a hero." He wasn't a fucking hero. He had no choice. He did what he had to do. And in terms of flipping on Donald Trump and giving the truthful information about what happened, I don't want anybody to make him out to be any hero in this case, because had he done it 2.5, 3, 4 years ago, he could have saved this country a lot of fucking pain. And it was his own fucking weakness, his own cowardice that didn't allow him to do that. Mike Pence is not a good guy. I don't care if he has faith or not. He maybe only thinks he has faith. He's a coward. He has no business being a leader in any sense on the federal level or even on the state level. He's a plastic mannequin who just does whatever he thinks he has to do to get fucking votes.
It's the same as Kevin McCarthy.
They're
pretty much the same people. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I also think that he only did what he had to do because he had to do it. If it would have been legal, or he could have gotten away with not certifying the electors, he would have done that. So
he would have,
he consulted enough people, even like far right wing people, and they're like, dude, you can't do that. Like, you're not, that's not legally okay. That's not an option. Otherwise, he would have done it.
Absolutely. He would have done it. Well, we've got the indictments going on in DC. A lot of stuff is going to be fleshed out here in the next few days leading up to the next couple of days leading up to the arraignment. And then after that, it'll get crazy. But while we're waiting for all this, there's a couple of things few things in the offing. We hear about the superseding indictments in the classified documents case. We had a few recently. There's going to be more because they said there's maybe 30 to 45 charges. In the January 6th case, people may be disappointed that Donald Trump is the only one indicted, but like we talked about, they just want it clean for him to get him done. But there's going to be a lot of superseding indictments coming out in the January 6th thing. And now we've got Georgia, which is imminent. Like within a week or two, we're going to see something from Fani Willis. And Fani may be the most ruthless of all the fucking people. Really.
She's a gangster for sure.
She's a
I think that
gangster.
she's yeah. I like her. I wish that sometimes she wouldn't get out in the public eye and talk so much. I don't necessarily think that that's always helpful for her case. Just like that, what's it called? That lady that was on the what's it called? The grand jury that went out
Oh, yeah.
afterwards and started running her gums. Or even like Michael Cohen, or like these people that you like. You're not making it better by saying all the things that you're saying when you're going to be in court cases with these people. So just shut up, like don't talk. But I like her style. I just think that she's I mean, if this is all a reality television show, she's one of my favorite characters, and I think that she's got him, and she's gonna bring a little flavor to the whole thing, which is gonna be exciting to watch.
It is. You brought up Michael Cohen. It's interesting about Michael Cohen. Remember when he was working for Donald Trump and we saw heard the phone calls and the videos, and everybody hated Michael Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
Then he gets convicted. He goes to jail. He comes out. Then he starts talking shit about Donald Trump. Now the motherfucker's got a best-selling book. He's on the TV news every fucking day. He's got a successful podcast. Everybody loves the motherfucker. You would think that the Republicans would see that and say, hey, I can reinvent myself very easily. Michael Cohen did it. And even if I don't go to jail, I can change everything by, I mean, I think Chris Christie is seeing that, and that's why he's doing what he's doing. He has no choice. He's just throwing a Hail Mary pass. He's going, I don't know if this is going to work, but I got to be different than everybody else.
A big part of me is frustrated about how the media will take a horrible person that does horrible things and put them on in front of a camera and make them a hero as long as they talk bad about who they think is bad.
Right.
So Bill Barr tried to do that. I think most people were able to see through that, but he's on CNN and he's saying what he says. Michael Cohen, a lot of the aides for Trump are now they're regulars on a lot of these news programs. That one lady that was Mike Pence's aide or something, like there's so many of them that are on the quote unquote left side of news media now. And it's frustrating because these people were bad people. They didn't say what they needed to say at the beginning or during it. It's only afterwards when they they go out to protect themselves. Now they're making a bunch of money going on there talking bad about Trump. And if they weren't talking bad about Trump, then these people wouldn't put him in front of a TV. It's a money-making business. It's a for-profit business, and all of them know what they're doing.
Well, and that's the important thing to understand about our news media. It is a for-profit business. Journalism and accuracy is second to making money. And if they have to gin things up to make money, I mean, we were just talking about it before. You mentioned it before that you saw on MSNBC. There's a poll that shows Donald Trump edging Biden in the presidential race if they were ever to go up against each other. That's absolute bullshit. That's just,
yeah.
I'm so tired of polls. These are the same polls that told us there would be a red wave in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking wrong. I mean, these polls, somebody should audit these polls, find out, first of all, who's paying for them. Second of all, finding out who they're calling. Ed, who's been on the show all the time, he says, as far as I know, they call landlines only. They don't call cell phones. Well, if they're calling landlines, who are they reaching? They're reaching rural old people. Yeah, of course they're going to like Trump.
I've never gotten a call for a poll once in my life.
No, neither have I. And I'm old. but
Yeah.
I don't have a landline. I think the polls, and they take a sampling of 1,000 people and they say, "Oh, Donald Trump's winning." I'm sorry, that's not a good sampling.
No, it's not enough. I mean, it's just to go back to the whole idea of for profit. That's the same thing. They feed these polls are so that they give it out to the news media so people can be on the edge of their seat to check back in after commercial and keep coming back and keep coming back. Like, oh, Trump's up by 1 point, Trump's down by 3 points, DeSantis has lost all of it. It's the constant come back and check, come back and check. It's doom porn, and that's all polls are. And I, after everyone thought that Hillary was going to win, the polls all said it was a 99%. She didn't win. Then you see that the polls since then have been less and less relevant. And my opinion about polls majorly changed during the midterms 2022 when I was freaking out. I think a lot of people were freaking out that there was going to be this big red wave, and there was people like yourself and a handful of other people that are like, whoa, 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 hold on a second. Like, let's really think about this. Let's look at the facts. And then there was no red wave. And I'm like, now I'll never trust it again. Like,
No.
just think about what the policies are. And that's what it is. If you can look at what the Democrats are going to bring for 2024, it's going to still be abortion. It's going to be, the guns, the stuff that left-leaning politicians want to put in, that the majority of the country want to have happen. That's what they're going to run on.
Well, and that's what I've said about 2024. Here's what you've got. They thought that women would forget about the abortion issue and it wouldn't be a big deal to them. Clearly, it was in 2022. It will be in 2024. You're taking constitutional rights away from 50% of America. 70% of the people support Roe v. Wade. They're against gun control. We're getting people shot up every fucking day. 70% of the country wants gun control. They don't. They're marginalizing LGBTQ folks, transgender, drag queens. They want the brown people to stay on their side of the border. Who else is there to vote for them other than old white people who are dying at 7,000 people a day? That doesn't
That's
bode well for an election.
We're not, I mean, you're a pretty smart dude. I'm not. I'm a dummy. I even understand how that doesn't work. Like, how can they think, okay, we're going to keep on doing this and expect to be able to gain any kind of new voters? And I mean, in the last 30 years they've won one popular vote. So they are a minority, and by they I mean Republicans.
Right.
Why do they keep on doing stupid things? The only way that they'll be able to ever win an election, which we see, is if they start rolling back voter rights, or if they just try to cheat like they tried to do in 2020. That's the
Well,
only way that they can win, and they're going to put more effort into cheating and being corrupt than actually presenting policies that people like.
right. Well, I think I've always said Republicans are short-sighted. They do all this shit when Donald Trump's in office. I always say, you do that shit. If you think ahead and the Democrats are in control, they can do the very same shit you just did. I mean, a good example of that is the Space Force thing. I talked about it yesterday. Space
Yeah.
Force was initially put into Colorado, and then toward the end of his term, Donald Trump said, "Now we're going to put it in Alabama." And that was the plan. Well, Joe Biden came out and said, "Yeah, that doesn't sound like a good idea. We're going to overturn that. It's not going to Alabama." Well, it's interesting that it's not going to Alabama because guess who's the senator from Alabama? Tommy Tuberville.
Oh yeah.
So he just got the rug pulled out from underneath him because he thinks he's a hotshot. He doesn't think ahead of what could go against him. He just burns the bridges, scorches the earth, and that's the one thing I learned in my old age is if I'm going to go after somebody, before I do it, I think, what can they do to me? Because if I find out something they can do to me, if I think they can do something to me, I'm not going to burn that bridge because
They'll
I'm not going to.
sacrifice. They'll sacrifice, one checker to jump over one thing, and then they got three or four that are going to get jumped over. And I
Right.
mean, even with the Pence thing that we were talking about, if Trump thinks that Pence could have overturned the electors, in the ceremonial thing, then what's to say that Kamala Harris couldn't do that in 2024? But then it wouldn't be okay. And that's all of Republicans kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? Like the even the like lock her up stuff. Now that Trump is going to get locked up for the exact same thing that they were screaming about Hillary, now
Yeah.
it's not okay. It's political. It's just you don't even see it. They don't even see the irony.
Oh, I think they do. I think what you said before is true. It doesn't matter if it's right or it's accurate. It's just about talking loud and trying to change the narrative because they have so little regard for their base or the people that follow them. They believe they can say anything and manipulate them. And sadly, it appears to be true. But that's their whole
Yeah.
strategy. They don't deal with policies, they don't do anything. All they do is try to make their people mad at the other people and get their votes because at this point they're so far behind the eight ball, all they can worry about is getting the election, not actually governing anything.
That yeah, exactly. And I don't think it's working in real life. I think that they're getting people pumped up like on the internet personalities are still equally as pumped up, but like I live I'm not going to say exactly where I live, but I live in Southern California right next to a very
At least give us your social
okay.
security number.
And my mom's maiden name.
Yeah.
I live in the Inland Empire, and there's one portion of it, one small town, and it's very cowboy. It's very like redneck kind of. It's referred to as Trump country out here, and I
Mm-hmm.
always drive my dog through there when it's too hot to take her for a walk because there's a bunch of horses and she can smell and look out the window. It keeps her active. And last election cycle, 2020, almost I would say one every three houses had a big Trump flag, and
Of
it
course.
was it was crazy. And you would always see these big trucks with Trump flags and the back the blue and stuff. I don't see them anymore. I in that whole area where there would be one every three houses, I've seen three total.
Right.
So, and some of them are just beaten down ones from 2020. They just
Right.
never replaced them. And so that in itself, I think, and even like on social media, like I see a lot less people on Facebook, which I hate to say I even use it, it's just for business, but less like blatant Trump supporting posts. It's like they just argue the culture war stuff and defend him in the comments, but it's not like photos of Trump or like there just doesn't seem to be that like I mean you can see it in his rallies. The numbers just don't seem I feel like people are almost embarrassed to say that they support him. It's not the same.
I'm ashamed to say Facebook is the least of my concerns when it comes to social media.
Me too.
So occasionally I'll let it fly and say some shit. When
Mm-hmm.
they come back and make some comment about what I said, my brains, libtard, how I look, whatever. I mean, none of that really hurts my feelings. My wife sees it and she goes, "Doesn't that bug you?" I go, "No, to me, I kind of like it because I know the people who like what I'm saying get something out of it, and I would much rather piss off the Trumplafucks than have no impact on them at all. But what I will do sometimes, and it may be only me that enjoys it, when somebody says something to me about being dumb or the way I look or whatever, I'll go to their page and I will look through their photos and find the dumbest fucking photos. And somebody will call me an idiot and I'll just put their picture up there and say
That's so awesome.
in the reply and go kettle black,
Yeah,
you dumb
that's
motherfucker.
awesome. I love that you're as petty as me. That is so fun. I think that that's right. One thing that I've been doing is I'll like if there is somebody that is Trump supporting or whatever, two things I'll do. I'll ask, are you supporting him? Yeah, I'm like, oh, so you're gonna support a convicted sex offender, somebody that was convicted by a jury of his peers. Oh, I'm like, well, do you have a mom? Do you have a sister? Like, how does that make you feel? And they stop. I mean, you know how it is. They're going to
Yeah.
stop all of that. Or if they start going on about how this big conspiracy of Biden getting all of these judges and these prosecutors and the Biden DOJ and over, all of the stuff that they say. I'm like, but isn't he an idiot? How could he be the stupidest man in the world, but also be the smartest man at the same time
Yeah.
to create this incredible conspiracy theory? Like, he can only be one of those things. So pick one. Which one is he? And you can't, like,
No, they just say whatever. They pull shit out of their ass and say whatever. They're like children. One thing that shuts people down for me too is that when somebody tries to make a clever comment about me, I'll say, you seem like a smart guy. You seem like a smart guy. And here's what I'll do is I'll make you this offer. Why don't you come on my podcast? And I'll put in parentheses, said the spider to the fly.
yeah.
I said, why don't you come on my podcast and teach me a lesson? I said, in fact, here's what I'll do. I'll give you the first 15 minutes. I won't say a fucking word and you can say whatever you want. You know what? They all disappear. They don't respond because they
Of
don't have the
course.
balls. They're cowards. They're fucking cowards. It's just, I don't know. I want to talk about Georgia real quick because
Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted.
no, that's me. I go off on tangents, and that's fine because, as we know, it's my fucking show, and we'll just do whatever I want. But the Georgia thing, you know, when this indictment came out yesterday, we're hoping that there's a lot more people that are going to get indicted, and I believe there will be. There'll be superseding indictments that come out down the road here, but the Georgia thing might be different because it sounds like she's going to be making some RICO charges. And the whole point of RICO is when groups of people work together. So I'm wondering if when she issues the indictments, there's going to be a shitload like Lindsey Graham, like Mark Meadows, like all these fucks. Because, Mark Meadows may have worked a deal out with the feds.
Yep.
He better work the deal out with Fani, too, because she's going to get him down there because he went down to fucking Georgia.
I think it's really interesting, and I'm curious to know how much the prosecutors communicate with each other. I know they have to do that for court dates sometimes, but if Fonnie Willis knows that Jack Smith on this, the January 6th, the one that the indictment that just happened last night, if she knows that he's trying to streamline it and just take him down for it, if maybe she is more willing to slow roll the long, because it's going to take a lot longer with that many defendants. There's going to be
Right, right.
a lot more time and a lot more motions and a lot more ways to slow it down. If she does it because it's a state crime, which will still a state, sorry, I'm sick, my brain's a little foggy, a state case, if she still does it, because even if Trump is elected, she can still run that case with him as a president, right? Because he
Oh,
can't pardon himself or like shut it down because it's not federal. So his
right,
DOJ or his next Bill Barr won't be able to go, okay, you guys got to stop this case, right?
right. No, they can't do shit.
So
So,
maybe she's like, okay, I'm going to take everyone. Who cares if it takes longer? I want to get the Lindsey Graham and all of these people.
well, the interesting thing is you would presume that Jack Smith and Fonnie Willis have talked and tried to coordinate things. And I didn't hear the comment, but I read something that she said, yeah, I haven't talked to Jack, which I find surprising. I don't think that's true. I think she's had to have talked to Jack because, they've got overlapping charges. They're going to be charging
Yeah.
for the same thing, and that's the thing about the one part that's going to come in with these states is the fake electors. Now, we know Michigan indicted some fake electors and they're all fucking crazy. We were duped. We were duped. No, you weren't, motherfucker. You knew exactly what you're doing. It's going to happen in Arizona. It's going to happen in Georgia, but the feds could also indict them too. So the fact that these things are overlapping with one another, I got to believe Fonnie Willis and Jack Smith had to talk at some point because Fonnie Willis said months ago that she was going to do this in August, and everybody said, well, Jack will want to go out before her. And
Right.
that's exactly how it turned out. So there had to be some coordination.
I would imagine there was coordination, at least for the timeline, the court scheduling. But I don't know how much of a like how much of a conspiracy, not in the sense of like but like them
Yeah.
getting together to discuss, okay, well, um you go first, you only run this one so that we can speed up the trial for the federal thing, we can hopefully get him before the election. I'm going to run this a lot longer and try to get Lindsey Graham, I'm going to try to get Rudy Giuliani. I can't see them having that. I mean, if they're ethical and there, but I also don't know the law like that. I don't know if you
No.
can, if you can't do that, but I don't think that it's, I don't know. I don't know how that would work. That part's confusing to me.
Well, I think what you said earlier is probably true too. That Fawny's kind of a gangster and she just don't give a fuck. Somebody said, "Well, this is happening. Are you going to back down?" She goes, "Fuck no, I'm going ahead." And so
Yeah.
I don't know that even Jack Smith could really control her or slow her down from doing whatever she wants to do. I mean, the thing about it is, Fonnie Willis is in Georgia, and they were talking about, well, they can take a DA out of there if they just don't like her. I will say this: if she indicts Donald Trump and takes him to court and wins, she just shouldn't care about Georgia. She could write her fucking ticket anywhere.
Yeah. I think too that Fonnie Willis and Jack Smith are very much the opposite, where Jack Smith is quiet, doesn't really say anything, um, really, really quiet. Like there's very little leaks that come out of there. Where Fonnie Willis, I think she's a lot more of a prideful woman and enjoys the the spectacle a lot more than Jack
Yeah,
Smith does.
yeah.
And so I think she'll be out in front of the camera more. She'll be doing more press conferences, more of that kind of stuff. And we'll know more about that case on a day-to-day thing. And if she has all of these people that are ready to go, like she said, all of, they're saying there could be what, 24 people or something like that. Didn't
I
that?
heard 12 to 15, but it could be
Okay.
anything.
So if she has, let's just say on the low side, 12 people, she doesn't strike me as a person that's just going to go after one, just
No,
Donald Trump. If she's got him, she's gonna shoot her shot.
right. Definitely. She's got the fake electors. And like I said, Rudy Giuliani went down to Georgia. Mark Meadows went down to Georgia. Lindsey Graham called Raffensperger twice. Donald Trump called him once. I have a feeling there's some other tapes that we haven't heard. I mean, that's the one thing about Jack Smith and Fonnie Willis. We've heard some pretty horrific things that Donald Trump and the Republicans did. I don't think we've heard half of it. I think there's going to be some stuff that we go, whoa, what the fuck? We never even thought of that.
In all of these cases,
Yeah.
I think they really they're only going to give you the very tip of the iceberg to probably to to be able to start kind of winning over the public, so it's not as big of a deal. They got to tell you something. It can't just be completely blind, but they're not gonna give all of that information before the court dates start. That just doesn't make sense.
No,
Why
no,
would they?
no, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. And, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. The Fonnie Willis one has always interested me. And I think it's the one thing that Donald Trump and the other Republicans are most fearful of, because as we said before, um, they're not going to get pardoned from it. It's just not going to happen. And it's a pretty sad case when Donald Trump's whole defense against all these cases is to win the presidency and pardon himself, because he has no chance of winning the presidency. This motherfucker's living on hopes and dreams, and there ain't much else there.
I just had a big burst of optimism, which happens often when I talk to you, Mike. So thank you. Is that it's even I mean, even just having these cases, I can't imagine politicians in the near future seeing what's going on, because all of these court cases are going to last and last and last. This story isn't going away in a year, 2 years. If Trump wins, there's going to be stuff. If Trump loses, there's going to be a lot more stuff. This is going to go on even after he's gone.
Right.
This whole era of our country is going to go on for a long time. And even if he isn't in a 10 by 10 cell, like we all, in an orange jumpsuit, like we all have this fantasy of him being, I think it will still scare future politicians to not want to go through this. Like, I wouldn't want to go through this.
Well, hopefully it does. I mean, that's one of the reasons you put people in jail is to deter other people from doing the same shit. Now, we're dealing with politicians, specifically Republicans. We're not talking about the brightest group of folks,
Or
you know.
people that have souls at all.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And there's some Democrats that don't have souls either.
Sure, sure.
But I think you're right about that. I think, people thought, well, when Donald Trump isn't president anymore, everything will get better. And it didn't. It got more hectic and more harried because of all the shit that's going on. And I think people think that when he goes to jail or gets locked down, that it's all going to be better, and it's not. There's a lot of recovery necessary here. We've got 6 or 7 years of trauma that we've gone through as a country. You don't
Right.
just snap your fingers and say, okay, I'm not traumatized anymore. We can be normal. And the thing is, people have said that to me. When do you think we'll be back to normal? I said, depends on what you call normal. Do you call before Donald Trump normal? Because if you're thinking we're going to go back to that, we're not. We're a changed country. We're a changed people. Whatever's normal on the other side is going to be something we haven't seen before. And it's probably for the better, but it's going to be different.
I think that I 100% agree with you. I don't think that's not how history works, right? You don't
No,
go back. It's just like the whole like make America great again. Like that's an illusion. It's a romance that isn't real. So in the same sense, like what you're saying is, well, when will we go back to normal? That's not today. This is normal for today. Tomorrow
right.
is going to be what it is tomorrow, and so on and so forth. But I think that this is hopefully an opportunity as a country to kind of to purge out all of the poison. And whenever you do that, it always gets way worse before it gets better. Everything gets kind of brought up to the surface and hopefully skimmed off the top. And we won't ever get back to something, but hopefully we get to a better version than even it was prior to Donald Trump. I think that it's, I mean, the youth today, I have a huge, a lot of optimism for them, and they seem to be a very compassionate, loving group of youngsters. And I got a lot of faith in them, and they're the ones that are taking over next. Hopefully, all of these geriatric fucks get out of the office so
Yeah,
that we can get some young people in. Like, we don't need Mitch McConnell stroking out on the podium anymore, or whatever that other Feinstein, not even knowing that she was gone for 2 months. Like,
right, right,
come on, guys, like put people in that know what day it is.
right, right. Exactly. I'm going to give you a theory here that may depress you, but see what you think about it.
After all the optimism, come on, Mike.
Well, no, it's optimistic because I believe it's like pulling the Band-Aid off and it hurts, but it's going to heal. All of what we see, maybe not all of it, but some of the corruption and some of the bullshit that's gone on. My theory is that this has been going on for decades. All the stuff we're seeing now has been going on for decades. It took Donald Trump, his ignorance, his blatant criminality to bring it to the top. And in that sense, it's a good thing because now we know it's there. The racism is there, the corruption is there. Now we can actually do something about it. But, when you look back on history, go back to Kennedy, go back even further, there was a lot of corruption we never heard about because there wasn't the media and there wasn't people willing to expose it. I mean, it goes back to Kennedy having affairs and we never heard about it. So we think
Right.
Kennedy is a fucking saint.
Sure.
Had Kennedy been in office today, I
No.
don't know that he would have survived.
Yeah. Well, I think that I think that you're right. There's always been corruption. Wherever there's power, there's
Yeah.
corruption. Wherever there's complete power, there's complete corruption, or however the saying goes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Um, what I think that has changed recently since 2000 and beyond is technology and communications. So you and I being able to talk on our computers via Zoom to create a podcast that will go out to, your million or 2 million listeners that you get on a daily basis. That's insane. You know what I
Well,
mean?
it's insane to say it's a million. I wish it was a
Yeah.
million, but you're right though. I mean, a lot of people
Or
can get out to
TikTok
a lot of
or
other people. Yeah,
right. And I think that is it just exposes people a lot quicker, and bad news travels faster than good news. And people are able to find out news within 15 seconds. If this whole thing that happened last night with Trump being indicted, if that were, in the 80s, the 70s, or whatever, it would be the following day that we would get the newspaper. Everyone's going through the newspaper. You're talking about it on the subway or around the water cooler. Now you immediately, if you're crazy, you get an alert on your phone, a chime or whatever, or you refresh your YouTube feed and, oh, breaking news, this happened. Like, it's so quick, and the amount of people that it can get out to, your TikToks to get out to, 250,000 people, or Threads or Instagram or any of those things. Information moves so much quicker, and I think that is really scary to powerful people. And that's the reason why
absolutely.
you see in a lot of authoritarian states, um, them limiting the internet. And I think, not to get too conspiratory, but I just like to do it a little bit sometimes,
You
is
gotta.
this whole alien thing might be a way for them to shut down a lot of the communications that we're able to and I know it's very far-fetched, but just the fact that, I mean, people in power don't like people talking about them.
Right,
So
right,
it
right.
could
No,
be, one. I mean, they thought the same thing about TikTok, right? They wanted to.
right. Well, and I have found the change in me too. Doing TikToks. Well, what I typically do is I'd watch the news or read the news online from the normal sources. I wouldn't trust them completely. I'd get the little tips for the stories, and then I'd do a little deeper dive in figuring out what I want to talk about and how I want to express it. But you know what? I've found personally, because of the way the algorithm is for my TikToks, I get more tips on things that I can look into by just going through TikTok, going through the people
Absolutely.
I know that are like me or somebody similar or some of the younger people doing it. I can go, oh, that's a good story. And then I go off and I figure it out and I dig it out and stuff. I get it much faster than I do watching MSNBC or anything else because they just repeat the same shit over and over. And if you go to MSNBC or any of the other websites, like for example, this indictment yesterday. If you heard about the indictment and you went to CNN or something like that, there's lag time before it even shows up because somebody's got to fucking write it.
Right.
But I can go to TikTok and go, oh shit, Chasing Oz just told me this shit. I need to check this out.
That's
So
exactly what happens. That's
yeah,
how I found out, is that, or it's who else, like what's that guy? Brian,
yeah, I know
real
who you're talking
popular
about.
life, the like,
Young guy.
young guy, wears the nice suit, good looking dude. That guy, or Midas Touch. They're really quick with putting stuff out. Fair and Balance, like, all of these people are really quick on putting things out, way quicker than CNN. Um, yeah, and there's a lot of good. Kyle Kalitsky is one
Yeah.
of my favorite, because I don't know, he calls everyone on their bullshit, and I just like the way he delivers stuff. So you can get it so much faster from independent journalists, or I wouldn't even call them journalists, because they're independent, um opinionist, you know
Right.
what I mean?
And with
So
TikTok, I don't need the whole story. I just need somebody to say Donald Trump was indicted in Washington, D.C. I go, okay,
then
that's all I need. And then I go back and find with BBC or AP or somebody that I trust to get the
yeah,
information. Um, you mentioned Midas Touch, and I have a lot of respect for Midas Touch. I just have a tough time watching them.
me
No,
too.
because and I don't mean to disparage them because they do a great job. Just for me, it's hard for me to consume because it seems too much like watching MSNBC. It's a little boring. I just need the information. That's the one thing I hate about TikTok when people do TikToks, and I try to avoid it when I do it. When somebody says, "Well, I got this breaking story," and they have a 2 minute ramp up to get to the fucking point, they're trying to manipulate you and get you excited and all that stuff. Just give me the fucking shit and let me
I
go.
I totally agree with you. You said it exactly how I would. I think that Midas touch is important. I think that they're doing a
I do
lot and
too.
they're being able to reach a lot of people. But for my taste, it's exactly what you said. There's a lot of ramp up and there's a lot of breaking news, and it's like that's not really breaking. That's the third breaking news today. This isn't like a lot of it for me feels very clickbaity,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's really turn and burn, and there's like 20 different things that come out a day. It's just a constantly grab your attention to go back and back and back and back, and there'll be a really good thumbnail, and there'll be not even a thumbnail but like a description, not even a title of the video, and I'm like, oh my god, this is cool. Then I click on it, and it's 17-minute video,
Yeah.
and
I'm
it's
not going to
just
watch it.
the most deranged post of Donald Trump ever. I'm like, you said that yesterday. Like, okay, we know he's deranged, and yeah, I mean, there's a couple guys for me where I think it's good and it serves a purpose is on the legal terms and what the like the legal side of things where you're not going to get the like broken down really nerdy on MSNBC or from other pundits, you know?
Yeah, there's legal AF. They're good too, but to me, they're a little
Yeah,
boring. I mean, the way I do what I do is I'm going to give you the basic information and a kind of an analysis of it, and I'm getting the fuck out
right.
because hopefully you'll dig deeper. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, and I might swear, I might say something funny, but I'm getting the fuck out. I'm going to give you the information now. Like when the indictments came out, I wasn't thinking about how I can make this. I just said, this is what's fucking going on right now. Here it is. We'll tell you more when we get it. I just People make the mistake when they go on to podcasts or TikToks where they try to emulate the media. I know there's some people that try to emulate radio shows when they do podcasts. I've done a million radio shows in my life. The last thing I want to fucking do is do a radio show. Because if you want a radio show, turn on the fucking radio. This is a much different medium. It's a more intimate medium. And I think that's why people like listening to this podcast. It's a little less what's the word I'm looking for? It's more casual
Yeah, it's less bombastic. It's not like, oh
and
my
it's
God,
easier
the
to
world's
listen
going to
to.
end. The
Right.
world's going to end today. That's why I like to listen to it. And I know what you're saying. The people that do the podcast, or not even the people that have radio shows, like that girl. I think her name's Stephanie Miller.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with her, but
I am.
she has like a soundboard, and every other word she says, she's hitting like either clapping or like an alarm or something. And I'm like, dude, I just want to hear what you have to say. You have awesome people coming on to like speak about these things, and it's just like constant like hitting these buttons. I'm like, it's so distracting. I think it's important to one get your information from a lot of different places and come up kind of, sift through them and kind of come to your own conclusion of things,
Right.
but also find someone that is someone you can listen to. You're someone I can listen to. Kyle Kalinske is somebody. David Pakman, I like. Sometimes he's kind of arrogant
Yeah.
and kind of cocky, but I mean,
He's
it's
accurate
almost,
and he does get
yeah,
to the point. So I can deal with him. I don't always
yeah,
listen to him, but this whole, my wife listens to a morning show that's here in town and it's
yeah.
very popular and it's very good. And she'll take the podcast when we're on the road and we're listening to it and she's laughing her head off. And she goes, "Don't you think this is funny?" I go, "Yeah, it's funny, but it's kind of formulaic. And I've been in radio for 40 years, so I've heard all this shit before." I said, "It's kind of like, when you work in a restaurant for like 5 years, but you will never eat there. It's the same thing
Yeah.
with radio for me. I don't want to do radio and I don't want to listen to radio."
I think that that's the same reason why it's probably difficult for you to listen to radio with your wife is the same reason why it's hard for me to watch TV or movies with my wife, because I can become very cynical and be like, well, that's impossible. That there's no way that that could happen. Like that storyline's stupid. This isn't realistic. And she's like, because it's a movie. Like you understand that. And I'm just too cynical about that stuff. So
Yeah.
my information comes from documentaries and boring shit that I can learn from. And when I listen to a podcast, I'm not trying to laugh. Like I'll listen to a comedian's podcast every once in a while. I like, different comedians and stuff like that. But when I'm listening to you, like I'm not trying to laugh. I'm trying to get information about what's current and going on in the day
So you're
about my
saying I'm not
interest.
funny? How do you
No.
mean not funny? You mean not funny like a clown?
Yeah, no, I think that you've got a sense of humor, and your cursing is fun. I like that. That's even when I posted the last time that I was on the show, I shared it on my threads, and I'm like, if you want to hear a foul mouth old man and a grumpy millennial or something like that,
Right, right.
and I
Well,
thought it just summed it up.
some people have been coming to Facebook saying, uh, you swear too much, you got to quit. And the last
Nope.
thing you want to do is tell me not to do something. Because so this woman said, and I feel bad about it, but she seemed like a Trumplefuck anyways, because Trumplefucks will come and say something. They won't say they're a Trumplefuck, but they'll call you out on something and try to be kind of subversive about it. But she
Yeah.
she 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 said, uh, you got to stop swearing. That sounds ridiculous. You sound like a child. So I responded by, fuck off.
That's best. That's the best. I've been very inspired by not just coming on your podcast, but also listening to your podcast and your freedom to just kind of do whatever you want. I'm starting my podcast back up, which every time I've done it, it's been geared towards like the maker community, whether that's knife makers,
Right,
leathersmiths,
right.
whoop de woo, all of the things where it's more of an interview thing. I've got questions for them. We're talking about their industry and how it compares and stuff like that. Starting to back up, I don't want to do that. I just want to talk about whatever, like conversations like this. This is what I get enjoyment out of. And life is short, man. You got to do what you want to do.
Yeah, you do. And people who will come on for the first time, they will say, so what do you want to talk about? You're going to give me questions? No, we're just going to fucking talk like if we were at Starbucks, but I wouldn't go to Starbucks, but you know what I mean? It's just a conversation. Um,
Sure.
and that's the best way. I think people like the idea of listening into a conversation that might interest them and what the fuck? I mean, I've done this too long to be so buttoned down about it. I
Yeah,
did all right. I
organized.
don't want to. Yeah, I'm not
Organized
organized.
or hard on yourself. I think it would be incredibly hard for you to do that anyways, because the news can change 10 minutes before you come on with a guest.
Oh
So
yeah,
if
absolutely.
you talk to somebody even a few days before to line things up for, timing or whatever, by the time it comes to, I mean, from the time we agreed to do this to the time that we came on, there was a bunch of information
Yeah,
that had happened. So it would be
yeah.
impossible for you.
And,
Just
and we agreed to go on 40 minutes before we went on. So there was a
right.
lot of shit that changed.
Yeah,
Well, we're going long again, and like I say, it's my
always.
show. I always go long, and people say, "Oh, geez, I'm sorry we went long." Fuck that. If we went long, that means it went well. So fuck it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mike, for having me on. I always appreciate it. I apologize to your listeners. I'm sick, so if I was clearing my throat into the microphone or any of that sniffling around, I apologize. I'm sick.
Hey, don't apologize to these motherfuckers. I ain't afraid of these motherfuckers.
I wasn't
They,
apologizing to you. I was apologizing to them.
I'm saying don't apologize to them. They know what's up here. I mean,
I
if
know.
you apologize to them for having a little cold, now I got to apologize them every day for every malady I have to fucking deal with. Maybe I got an attitude one day. I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm just going to come in and do it. And if you don't like it, come back tomorrow. It'll be different.
We come for your attitude, though.
My wife comes for me because of my attitude.
Yeah.
but what the fuck. Anyway,
Yeah.
well, thank you, Dennis, for coming on and bailing me out. I thought this would be easier given what we all have to talk about to get another point of view and get somebody to talk to about it, because I do get bored just going an hour straight of just me. I, I don't know, maybe people like it, but I get bored with it. I do get
Yeah,
bored. I'd rather have the conversation.
I love coming on here. I was actually telling, like I mentioned, me and my wife went on vacation for a week, and I was telling her how, because we watch TV. I don't ever watch TV, and she was willing to watch news with me and kind of keep up with what was going on, and we ended up kind of semi bonding over it. And she's asking a bunch of questions. It feels good to be asked questions that you can answer, and someone take an interest in what you're doing. And I was just telling her, I'm like, I don't get to talk about this all that often. I'm like, the only time I really talk about this is when I go on the Rational Boomer podcast. I'm like, I have so much fun because I get to talk about it. And
Right.
she's like, oh, that's great. You need to start your podcast back. And that's what kind of led into me
Absolutely.
wanting to start mine back up. Then I was talking to her because as soon as I found out about the indictment, I came into I work from home. So I kind of ran into the house. I'm like, did you hear? I mean, did you see what happened? She's like, no. I'm like, I texted to you. And she's like, whatever. So later I'm like, oh, I'm going on to go talk to Mike on the Rational Boomer podcast. She's like, no way, that's so cool. I'm like, yeah, I'm stoked. This is
It's
rad.
nice that she supports you in that.
Yeah.
My wife goes,
That way she doesn't have to listen to me all the time. You get to sometimes too.
yeah, my wife says to me, "You doing a podcast?" Yeah, I do it every night. Okay, I'm going to bed. Good, because then I'll be left alone and I can do this fucking thing.
Right?
But anyway, well, Dennis, thanks for coming in.
Anytime.
We're gonna have a lot more shit popping, so feel free to email me and come back on anytime. It's a pleasure and it's helpful, and it's good to get somebody else's insight.
Anytime. I love it. I think it's a good dynamic, and I appreciate you having me on.
We have a great time. For those of you listening, thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen. Hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.